And we're live, and good morning, everyone. How you all doing? It's me, Kasim, here, filling in for Alex on the Festival of Enterprise Bounce Back Live webinar series. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend and are looking forward to getting back into work today. Today we've got a really special webinar, and it's been brought to us by Kuiper in partnership with WatchGuard. Today's is all about security. So we're going to find out about how to automate your network security and how to make sure that your business information that's held on your servers and on your computers is being kept safe, and also that your business is safe from being hacked and all of these different things that are happening. So Hiscox recently released a Cyber Readiness Report that found that 30% of UK businesses reported at least one attempted cyber attack in the past 12 months, with a successful breach leaving the target company with a median cost of nearly £35,000. So I know John's going to sort of go through all of this information with you guys. Before we go on to Jon-Marc, I have got another special person with us today, Stuart Hall, Director of Kuiper, who are a national IT solutions provider looking to support SMEs with anything IT or tech related. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Stuart. Thank you.
Thanks, Kasim. And well, good morning, and thank you all for joining Kuiper and WatchGuard on this Bounce Back Live webinar. The actual theme is don't hesitate, automate. Really appreciate the effort Kasim and the team at Festival of Enterprise are putting in to help us take part in initiatives like this, and I do hope today you're all going to get a huge benefit from. To quickly introduce myself and who is present on this meeting, as Kasim said, I'm Stuart Hall, and I'm Director of Kuiper. I'm joined today by my Head of Sales, Neil Jelly. He's in the background somewhere, I can assure you. He just didn't want to be on camera. And a big welcome to Jon-Marc Wilkinson, Sales Director of WatchGuard UK and Ireland. Jon-Marc will be leading this webinar today, and myself and Neil, like I said, we're going to disappear, and we'll let him do his thing. Just to give you a very brief introduction to Kuiper, we're a Midlands-based IT solutions provider. Our headquarters and our service centre is in Birmingham, and we've got further sales and service centres in Mansfield. Kuiper calls itself, we call ourselves a total solutions provider. Our tagline's actually universally embracing IT solutions. It's that because we really do act as a broadline provider in every sense of IT. So whether that is IT hardware provision, cybersecurity solutions, cloud computing, managed services, such as acting as your IT service desk. We do telecommunications, so you've got your internet and your mobile, and more recently launching our own brand of digital signage and commercial display solutions. Having said that, we truly believe our actions do the talking. We don't like standing up here and preaching about how amazing we are and, you know, sorry to be rude, but blowing smoke up our own backsides. We think you should be the judge of that. So if you'd like to see what our customers do think about us, just please, at your leisure, get on our website, visit the About Us section, and just check out our testimonials. You know, hopefully that will give you a true representation and a flavour of who we are as people, and how we work with our customers. So over the next few days after this webinar, it'd be great to follow up with you all. We'd like to get your feedback about today, see how things stand in the current climate. We'd like to understand what your plans were pre-lockdown, that dreaded L word, and now what your plans are post-lockdown, because a lot of the landscape has changed. And finally, we just want to identify ways that Kuiper can help solve any problems you have. Like I said, really do hope you find the webinar very informative, very educational. Jon-Marc's fantastic. There is a Q&A session, I believe, at the end. So we look forward to answering any questions you might have. If your question's uber technical, apologies, we might not be able to answer it here and there, but we'll certainly go and find the answer. So I'm now going to pass on to Jon-Marc, Sales Director for WatchGuard UK and Ireland.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So let's just by way of a quick introduction, I'm really excited to be here today and you know, present what we're going to call our automation presentation. This has been born out of, this has really been born out of a lot of research that we've done. And actually, let me go back a stage. So, by the way, it's rude of me. Let me introduce myself. My name's Jon-Marc Wilkinson. I'm Sales Director at WatchGuard, and I've been here for now 10 years. I've been in the industry for about 22 years at varying companies, varying vendors, but really always within the security and availability markets. What we've done today is put together a brand new solution, taking into consideration all our strengths. And we've done that in partnership with Gartner, in partnership with Forrester, and talking to them along with our customers about really what makes us different and how can we differentiate ourselves. Because ultimately, you know, there's so many products and it's very confusing for people, especially with threats evolving out there in the wild so much, that we really need to give you a precise solution that will help you combat those threats out in the wild. So without further ado, let's get going on the presentation. If we could just make that presentation live, and then we can crack on. So bear with me. Let me just play my screen. There we go. If we just turn the next, there we go. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about today, I think there's 4 areas that we really need to focus on when it comes to security, and when it comes to challenges that the mid-market face. And when we say mid-market, we're really talking about the SME. And let's frame that for you. So we're looking at anyone, and the mid-market is big. It's from anywhere from 10 users up to a few thousand users, anywhere up from a few 100,000 turnover up to tens of millions of turnover. So that really is the mid-market. So this really is a solution that will stretch across the majority of the market. And what we've found, again through our research, in that mid-market, there's 4 areas that are key to companies that they're trying to overcome. And one is a lack of skilled security people. So I don't want to do anybody down who's an IT professional, but there is a real difference between becoming or being an IT generalist, who, don't get me wrong, is far more technical than I will ever be, but being that real threat researcher, threat analyst, is able to look at attacks, analyze attacks, and make sure that you can really see where they're attacking, what data they're going after, why it happened, looking at trends, analyzing those threat vectors, looking at payloads that are put into various pieces of malware. It's a whole nother level to be able to do that. And this is something that this solution can bring. There's always going to be an attack. As was mentioned earlier in the presentation and in the introduction, the majority of people will be attacked. And what we're seeing now is, with the advent of more remote working, people, users, are now no longer just behind the firewall. We'll talk about that. It's so difficult to protect those individuals, whether they're easier behind the firewall, but if they're working from home, working from a remote site, working on potentially untrusted networks, it's so difficult, and that inevitability of attack increases exponentially. The urgency to detect, it's so important that we detect these attacks. And again, we'll come on to in this presentation, it's so likely that a lot of organizations don't know they've been attacked. So there's an inevitability that you will be attacked, but quite a few companies won't know that they've been attacked. And that can actually stretch on for about 6 months. We'll talk about that. And as I've mentioned, the new perimeter, it's certainly come on since, you know, let's face it, I've in my working career have been talking about pushing the perimeter out, whether I've been with companies like Citrix and, you know, access applications from any device anywhere, whether it's, you know, with previous companies where we've seen that the firewall and people now working outside of the firewall, but certainly since March, and as Stuart said, that dreaded L word, we're seeing the perimeter extended, and it's so much more difficult to secure. So the typical IT team in a mid-sized business, and again, you may be sitting there thinking, well, I've got 4 people, I've got 10 people. Absolutely. But really, when we've gone out and interviewed thousands of customers through the various research databases and analysts, generally a mid-sized business will have around 3 IT generalists. They're working, what, 52 hours each week or 52 hours a week? But again, none of those are security experts. And what we want to do today is say that that is so important, that because the threats are evolving so much, because the threats are now coming at such a pace, that we need to make sure that your IT team are fully armed to be able to protect your network. And when we're talking about protecting your network, let's just say, what are we protecting? We're protecting the individuals, potentially from having their individual data stolen. We're protecting the company from having the company data stolen. And what data do we look at? We look at anything from secret sensitive documents, if we're looking at military, central gov, maybe we're looking at just simple things like names and addresses. And you may say, well, do you know what? Anyone can have my name and address. Well, that's fine. But if they've got your name and address, they don't necessarily come and burgle you, but they could come and burgle data. They could make up fraudulent IDs, fraudulent passports. They could actually take out loans. But actually, one of the things that we see quite a lot is we actually see people hacking into companies and not necessarily stealing data, but ironically, putting data onto your network. And these are quite unsavory things like video files. They could be documents that they will then farm off to somebody else, or actually give another person access to that data store. It could be on one of your web servers to get them accessing. So without you knowing, you could well be actually passing on illegal data. And these are all things that can happen if you don't have the visibility of what threats are out there. The key for me is automation. Automation is absolutely key. Oh, bear with me. So the evolving threat landscape. So when we talk about those threats, the way we understand what threats they are is by actually understanding the threats out there in the marketplace. And we can do that by actually looking at our threat landscape. We can look at what we call our WatchGuard Operations Center. Now, within our global threat lab, we actually have 40,000 devices across the world. That's a number of just monitor devices at our customer sites, or devices that we've put out there, and they're termed honeypots, very attractive devices that hackers like to try and get into. That enables us to analyze various threat trends that are out there in the market. Now, what's interesting, and this is actually taken from Friday, I didn't get time to actually look at it today, but from Friday, what we can actually see is 84% of the threats that we detected, or the malware that we detected, was 0 day. Now, what that means is it's never been seen before. If it's never been seen before, basic antivirus, basic signature-led threat detection simply isn't good enough to stop those viruses. If it's not good enough to stop the viruses, that means 1, as I mentioned, you can't see it. 2, you can't stop it. 3, it's going to execute its payload and actually potentially take data, bring network down, disrupt work. So these are things, this is very important when we're thinking about the types of solutions that we need to deploy, and that our customers need to deploy onto their actual networks. Now, what I will say is you can get access to this data, so it's not just me showing you a slide. If you want to write a website down, you can write www.secplicity.com. That's secplicity.com. Now, secplicity.com will give you access to this data. It will give you access to 40,000 devices. You can search by UK, you can search by the world, you can search by the day, the week, the month, the year. So you can actually start targeting and looking what threats are out there. The Secplicity website is a WatchGuard website that we run. And the reason we call it Secplicity rather than WatchGuard Threat Landscape is because we want to empower you to understand more about threats that are out there in the marketplace. If the threats are out there in the wild that aren't necessarily focused just on the types of equipment you've got in your network, it just gives you a general overview of the types of threats, the vulnerabilities. Maybe it's a Java vulnerability, maybe it's a Microsoft vulnerability. It just better, again, armors you for the threats that are out there. And you can get access to that online 24/7, and it is alive, continually updated. But don't just take our word for it. You know, I can sit here and say threats are evolving, threats are out there, and they're going to hack your data. But what I've actually find quite useful is actually trying to cross-reference what we see with our National Cybersecurity Centre, so the actual government body that looks at those hacks. I mean, we heard about the potential Russian attack that was out there, trying to get access to the vaccine for this, you know, horrible COVID-19 virus. It's also telling you things along the lines of, if you're hit by a virus, if your network's taken down, it can actually take around 16 man days to bring yourself back into a working position, maybe to get that web server back up, to get your email working again, to get desktop 1 to 10 working again. It's, again, don't just take our word for it. It's National Cybersecurity Centre that are actually saying these things are live, these threats are real, and it really is happening now. So again, we need to start looking at those types of solutions that can put in play. But again, thinking about the types of solutions that with a limited IT resource can be automated to provide you the best experience possible. So I was going to title this pre-lockdown, post-lockdown, but I think everyone's probably heard enough about lockdowns. So let's call it pre-March and post-March, but it's the same thing. So pre-March, this is how a lot of people's networks looked. And again, you may say, well, hold on, no. I use this technology, that technology. But again, we're taking the feedback that we've got from our research. And a lot of companies still had a perimeter-based defense, which was a firewall at the heart of the perimeter, at the core of the perimeter, protecting whether it's your business critical apps, the desktop laptops that sat on the LAN, on the WAN environment, obviously the users at the head office, maybe it's at the remote site. What's key about that? Excuse me. What's key about that is that behind the firewall, it's very simple. You know all the devices that are on the firewall. It's a virtual front door. You can see everything's going out, everything's coming in. It's so easy to monitor, one central point to monitor. And the visibility into things like HTTPS encryption. So if you look on the website, and I'm sure you know this, teaching you to suck eggs, but a lot of websites now, HTTPS, that's encrypted traffic. Again, technology is such that we can now look inside that, we can unencrypt it, re-encrypt it, look inside. But again, that data now isn't just behind the firewall, it's everywhere. So post-March. So what happened post-March? What happened post-March is that at a drop of a hat, we had to react. At the drop of a hat, we suddenly had to become extremely agile with regards to both our networking and our security posture. Because literally overnight, there was no perimeter. And literally overnight, there was no longer just one site behind a firewall controlling all your business apps. Everybody was thrown out there to home, maybe to remote sites, smaller remote sites, but the majority of small to medium, small business users were now having all their employees working from home, and for good reason. But the problem of that is, And we know this because at that moment, people literally couldn't get hold of laptops because people are like, oh my word, I need a laptop. I've got 400 people, 200 people, 150, 10 people who now have to work from home. What do I do? How do I do this? So they go and buy the laptops. But are they fully secure? Have we just put basic antivirus on there, signature driven? Do you actually know the devices that are out there? Because some people are just like, right, go work. You've got a laptop, here's a VPN, get in. But there's still ways to be compromised. We don't know the state of those devices. Who's been on them? Who's using them? Are they already compromised? How many times have you spoken to friends and family? Oh, you're in IT. Let me talk to you about my internet security. Talk to me about my viruses, blah, blah, blah. How can I make sure that my Norton, my X, my Y, my Z, it is keeping my PC up to date. Oh, when did you buy it? 5, 10 years ago. Excellent. You're not up to date. You're insecure. So all these things have to be considered. Even the very wireless that people are using can be easily compromised. We've done so many researches and tests whereby we've literally just set up honeypots. We've sat outside shops and set up the name of the shop on a false access point. So we've sort of mimicked an access point, scaring the amount of people. We've nullified the data. We won't see that data. But it's scary how many people connect. It can be done at home. And if you're entrusting that user back into your office to gain access to your applications, and then suddenly that user becomes compromised, that data. And again, IT have got more than enough to deal with. And more than enough to deal with is exactly what this says. IT teams have now become overwhelmed in this new reality. No longer is it just IT security or XYZ to deal with. It's now, oh my word, I'm trying to connect from home. I can't get on. My VPN doesn't work. I've got to Zoom. I've got to try and connect my PowerPoint with the Zoom presentation. It's not showing. What do I do? How do I work around that? Bandwidth. I'm on I've got an old BT line, an old XYZ, an old Virgin line. I can't get anything to work. So all of these things, yes, password resets, etc., etc. So they're becoming overwhelmed with problems. And going back to that first slide, limited IT resource, IT generalists, what would suffer? What do we have to prioritize? Do we prioritize productivity, or do we have to prioritize security? It's a balance. So what we have to do, as this age-old slide shows, and those who remember and have been in the industry long enough, we need to work smarter and not harder, which is where the next slide will bring in, and it will talk about automation. So when we talk about working smarter and not harder to try and solve all of these issues when it comes to IT security and the evolving threats that will target your data, we've got 4 key levels of automation that we need you to consider and that the WatchGuard solution will bring. The first one is being able to manage and visualize what is happening on the network. So firstly, in terms of management, these solutions need to be easily automated so that management and configuration of devices can be done not just once, but if we've got multiple devices to ship to one location, to another location, to another location, can be very easily done and actually automated. Because as we've seen on here, and this is actually quite an age-old stat that still rings true, 99% of security breaches are because of misconfigured firewalls. Because when I said IT generalist, and I really do mean this, we don't mean that that individual isn't technical. Crikey, they're technical. But they've got to look at configuring multiple different devices and multiple different solutions. It's almost impossible to be able to focus on maybe just one 100% of the time. It's impossible. So these little mistakes will happen. And visibility, and I tell you what, this next slide I really do like. And this next slide I've used for absolutely years. So when it comes to visualization, what we're saying is that you can only fix what you can see, and apologies that this is a bit Americanized, and we are an American company, but you could use this for football, for rugby, for cricket, etc. But what this is showing us is if we didn't see it, we might not know how to fix it, and we might not know what's happening. This is obviously a basketball court, and what it's showing is where the most successful shots are taken. Now, what I didn't realize is that the points per attempt, one of the most successful places, obviously under the basket, slam dunk. But if you look in front at a 3-point range, so from further out, we're seeing that there's more successful shots taken. Now, what you might have thought, it may have just been a grading pattern of saying that the closer you are to the basket, the more shots, etc. But it's not. If we push this into security, and we could say it may be that user that you don't expect that could be infected. It may be that user, and that user that could actually be infecting the company, but they may not. It may not be their fault. It's just that they've been infected by a website they visited, by someone else using their laptop, again on the BYOD, because they've been made to work from home. So this is something that through our system of automation, we can spot this and we can take action and we can respond to what we're seeing. And again, as we push out onto the perimeter and we allow people more access who don't usually work from home, that education piece is, well, I'm at home, I've turned off my VPN. Oh, why don't I play some games? Why don't I go onto the Steam console? Why don't I go onto the Steam website and play, what's this? New Super Lucky's Tale. Why don't I play some of this? The reason I mentioned Steam, great platform if you like gaming, but it was compromised the other day. And when it was compromised the other day, there's 35 million users, therefore 35 million credentials. It is actually even now unknown how many of those credentials, users' addresses, emails, etc., were compromised. And again, perhaps that's because there's not the visualization that they need to be able to determine that. And we don't know how long that attack took. So what we need to do is make sure that we go to the next level of automation, which is operation. Now, one thing through management and visibility, the next stage, this is all around having to deploy new technologies and making sure that when we deploy new technologies, it's seamless, it's using the same configuration that we've tried and tested, hence the previous slide, misconfiguration causes vulnerabilities. And we want to save man hours because, again, we've got limited resource. We don't want to be sending people all around the country. So what we can do, again, through our automation, through something we call rapid deploy, we can send boxes out to site. It might be a retail branch. It might be a home office. Plug in. The box goes off to the internet, downloads a configuration that has been set up in console. Therefore, there is no misconfiguration, saves time. And we've got customers that are literally pushing thousands of these out. And the reason they're doing it is because they want to ensure that that configuration, that policy is standardized and it's secure, rather than each and every one of the boxes being configured slightly differently by somebody else. So level 2 operation in terms of deployment is extremely important. So when we come on to the next slide, which is level 3, we need to find, and this is interesting, this is what I was saying before, depending on the level of security that you have, will actually determine how long it will take you to determine a threat. The longer it takes you to determine a threat, the longer that it takes you to determine a breach, the more damage that breach can do. So the first thing is, when we look at the average time it takes a breach, it can actually take around 6 months. And on the next slide, we can show this, and it will start to build as well. So the next slide will start to show us, that things maybe that are found in January will actually take 6 months and may not even be resolved until October. So if we start to build that slide, again, just to give it in a graphical format, it's quite often that if we don't know when those threats are happening, they could take effect in January, they could take effect in February. We just don't know. And actually, it could go all the way to June. And so if you think about what damage that could do and what damage some of the threats will do, they will sit on a device and they will watch keystrokes. They will sit on a device and they will look at what data is being transacted. And they will look at a device and they will see, or maybe it's a server, maybe it's even a phone system to listen in, maybe it's getting hold of your webcams and actually watching what people are doing. And if you've not detected it or fixed it till October, it's a huge amount of business. That's a huge amount of impact to the organization. Now, this is always interesting. And this is something I've talked about for many years. It's the world of false positives. It's so easy to secure your environment. And it's so easy to secure your environment. And all you do is you put a great big brick wall up. And the brick wall is nothing will get in, nothing will get out. And that would be a simple way. Or you put up your security threat list to as high as we can. So it's saying anything that looks slightly suspicious, stop. And the problem is with that, you're going to stop things that you don't want to stop. And you've got users who maybe want to look at this and that, Tesco's vouchers. They might want to look at, I don't know, various websites that aren't dangerous, but actually when they're flagged up on a system, if you've got your threat levels too high, it's going to stop it. And that again will cause a limited amount of staff too many hours when they've got, as we've said on one of the other slides, so many other things that they've got to think about, whether it's VPN issues, user issues, password issues. So the overall solution that we bring to you today is what we like to call Automation Core. And Automation Core, as we've said, enables you to automate your security function and your security practice to mitigate against the threats that we've discussed. And it also enables you to deploy securely, and it enables you to also basically save time for your internal staff. So what does Automation Core do? So automation, as we've said, really is at the heart of what we do as a company. It's a unified threat platform, a unified security platform that works in the following ways. Whether you've got, and if you can think about it in 3 boxes, you've got your endpoint, you've got your network, you've got your Wi-Fi. All of this data needs to feed into a central point, and we call that WatchGuard Cloud. And it all feeds into that central point because we need to make sure that everything can be cloud managed. And by the way, I think I listened to a previous presentation, and when you start saying cloud managed, everyone says, where's your data held? So we have 3 data centers, one in Europe, one in APAC, one in America. Of course, with the whole wonderful Brexit thing happening, we will see if we can get something in the UK and see whether we need that from a compliance point of view. But as we said, WatchGuard Cloud is ready to use. It's a single pane of glass that enables you as the customer or as the service provider the ability to centrally manage your firewalls, your wireless, so everything that we do can be cloud managed. When it comes to cloud deployment, as we've said before, everything can be set up in the cloud from an appliance point of view, an endpoint point of view, a wireless point of view, and then that configuration pushed out, so cloud deployment. And that can all be automated as well. When we look at threat sync and how we can take in all this information around threats and analyze them at a single point, WatchGuard Cloud has what we call Threat Sync, and that takes all the telemetry data from the endpoint, from the wireless, from the network, the LAN, the WAN, and pushes it into that Threat Sync database. And it enables automatically to responding to the threats that it sees, whilst also automatically pushing notifications and reports that are in a visual format that we've discussed before, so that you can easily spot trends. And our antivirus that we do use is not just pure signature-based antivirus. It's AI-driven antivirus. It will spot viruses and threats and trends sometimes months before you hear that news article that says WannaCry, CryptoLocker, which by the way we weren't hit by, that are out there in the field, that are out there in the wild. And we will enable that to be stopped so that you can protect your endpoints, your network, your wireless environments before they do get out in the wild and do cause damage. So those are the 4 key areas of Automation Core. Let me just change slide, bear with me. So again, don't just take our word for it. And these are the final couple of slides here. At the core, firewall. So obviously, what does WatchGuard do and what are WatchGuard known for? We're known for firewalls. So that really is at the core of everything we do. But through automating our IT security and through automating our solution, you can see, and again, don't just take our word for it, NSS Labs. We're only just there were only 2 platforms in a recent analyst report that didn't miss a single piece of malware. If we look at the key about Automation Core and the WatchGuard Cloud and the WatchGuard solution, it means you can plug in everything from the endpoint, wireless, into a cloud management solution. It means wherever you are from any device, especially when you're working from home, you're not tied down by server-driven management applications. You can deploy, manage, report, add new products, take off new products, again from a central point. And we've already had 50,000 deployments of this solution, so it must be working. And as we've said, our companies, our partners, our end users are saving huge amounts of time. And again, and the reason they're doing that is because everything's automated and it's all using AI-driven technology to make that artificial intelligent decision, which is generally far quicker than being reliant on IT teams that are already overwhelmed with the amount of work they're doing. So learn more. So we've got 2 things that you can take away, and I'm sure Kuiper will be able to provide you. We have an ebook if you want to go over some of the points that we've said on the presentation today. What is Automation Core? How does it work? How is it relevant for you? We also have an ROI calculator that Kuiper can work you through. It talks about how many IT staff do you have, how many hours do they work, how many hours are they dealing with XYZ. So you can actually see how automation, through the Automation Core solution, can actually not only save time, but can save money to your company. And that is obviously really, really cool. So I think I've just seen in the comments, Stuart's already put the ebook on, so excellent stuff. And then we come on to the final slide, which is, bear with me, which is me to say thank you. So before we finish, let me just say, I just want to obviously say thank you so much for giving me time today to speak to you about Automation Core. We're really excited about it. It's a real differentiator for us. And I also think in this environment that we've said many times on this call, where you've got numerous remote staff, you've got an evolving threat landscape, and you've got IT teams that are really always struggling to keep pace just because they're so busy with other things. It's so important that you can provide an automated AI-driven security platform to help your customers, whether it's on the wireless, whether it's on the endpoint, or whether it's in the core network. So with that, thank you very much. That's from me, Jon-Marc Wilkinson. And obviously, I don't know if we've got time for questions, but if we do, I'm happy to take anything that you've done.
Thanks for that, Jon-Marc. That was really good, really interesting, and some key points actually about what people were doing pre-lockdown to post-lockdown, and how the environment's changed. I mean, you've heard about big brands being hacked, and people's secure data. And I think with GDPR being such a massive thing, and having spoken to the ICO about all the different things they're trying to implement, and the onus is on the businesses to make sure that their IT is secure. A lot of people are now looking at new and innovative ways of implementing security into their business. So really good topics, really good. Guys, anyone watching, if you have got any questions for Jon-Marc, please feel free to drop questions in, and we can get them answered for you. I'm just checking. I think we've got one come through here. So we run a small business. So we run a small business, and we only have 3 computers. Now we're currently using G Suite to manage everything. Is that the most secure way of running your business, using sort of G Drive and everything to manage the whole process?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar, I'll be honest, with G Suite. I think the key thing is whether you've got 1 device, 2 devices, 3 devices, or 3 million devices. What we always say is, and it's the threats that are out there don't differentiate by the user type, by the user number. So whether you're a central government body or whether you're, as you say, a 3-user, the level of threat and the sophistication of threat is going to be the same. So you're going to need a type of technology that will protect you. What I would say is look at the solution you've got. Look at how you are protecting your endpoints, and ensure that that endpoint solution that you're using has not just signature-driven antivirus, but has heuristic and AI-driven antivirus, because it will be the only way to protect against those zero-day threats. And I think it was already put up in the comments that the Secplicity website, go and have a look. The data that you can get from there is the majority, and it is interesting that in the UK, we have the highest number of zero-day threats, more than America, more than Asia-Pac. We have the highest number of zero-day threats. So just make sure, it is good to manage everything centrally, but you can manage everything centrally, but just make sure that the security that's hanging off that is at the highest level possible. And I'm sure Kuiper can give you guidance around the types of technologies that have heuristic and AI-driven antivirus.
Thanks for that, John, and thanks, Stuart, for putting that link up in the comment section. We've got another question here from Ben, who I think he's asking about the Vanguard system specifically. How easy is Vanguard to set up within a business?
So WatchGuard, although there was a product, I'm sure there was a product years ago called Vanguard, but so let me take a step back.
Well, my bad on that. I must have been fixated on something different today.
We'll call it Vanguard for the time being. The WatchGuard product, well, there's 2 things I need to mention. Firstly, as WatchGuard, we operate a partner program where we run through the channel. This is why we're partnering with Kuiper. So Kuiper will provide professional services and the ability to help and guide you through. So if you did, let's say, decide to buy WatchGuard for your organization, you can either teach yourself to deploy it, and I'll come on to that, or you can obviously partner with Kuiper, who are a fully certified gold partner. That means they've got sales, technical, NFR appliances, and they deploy to a lot of our large customers. In terms of the system itself, in essence, we've always been a mid-market company. We've always taken the position that, as we've said in the presentation, IT teams aren't always security specialists, and therefore the product does need to be intuitive when it comes to setup. The initial setup is fairly straightforward, but I think with all solutions, there's always those little pieces that may not be quite as obvious when you're doing it for the first time. So what I would certainly suggest is, it is fairly straightforward to set up for mid-market and small business, but I'd certainly engage with Kuiper to help you on that initial setup. But once set up, as we've said with Automation Core, you can quickly deploy to multiple sites, to multiple users.
Brilliant, thanks for that, John. And sorry for calling it Vanguard. Not sure where that came from at all.
It's all good. It's all good.
I think I must have seen something on my drive down or something. So we've got another question from Peter Ross, who's asking, I've just been sorting an issue with malware that hit WordPress and affected our website. Our hosting company is hopefully fixed, but how would WatchGuard protect against this?
So the issue. So firstly, I would. I'm not technical, so from a technical response, I probably can't give you. However, obviously you're saying it's on the host, so you're using a hosting company. Always a problem with hosting companies is the fact that obviously we don't know what type of security they have, so we don't know where the hack occurred. Now, in theory, if you had WatchGuard on your device, we can probably tell whether you were or not you particularly, but whether the threat and whether the vulnerability came from one of your machines and actually logged in via the WordPress site, via the hosting company. But equally, we'd need to do some diagnostics. So we can protect against it, but it depends at what level. And honestly, I would suggest you speak to Kuiper. And what we can do, we can take that away and we can give you a full technical response, because I could just probably go round in circles without giving you the precise answer.
Brilliant, no, I appreciate that. So I think that's everything for today. Is there anything you want to finish on, John? And has anyone else got any questions?
So I suppose, for me, the only thing to finish on is, again, it's, thank you so much for allowing us to take part in this webinar. And as we've said many times, we're excited to bring this solution to you. The key thing that probably we didn't get out is just to give some very quick, WatchGuard has been around in the industry for over 20 years. We've always been in security, and we haven't diverted from that at all. And one of the key things, and when you look at the stats on the Setplicity website, we're mid-market. So all the stats that you're seeing are relevant to mid-market. Do we have enterprise customers? Yes. Do we have home users? Yes. But it's that mid-market. And what we're seeing at the moment, and this is the real key takeaway, and I think we said it in answer to one of the questions, whether you're operating a 1 user customer or a 1 million user customer, the threats are the same. You need the same level of threat detection, whichever size company you are. And just because you think, well, I'm not attractive to a hacker, think again, because you can be. And people can, as we've said before, either look to get credentials off you, can look to leapfrog off your company if you're contracting with a larger company, or look to store things that can be quite unsavory and unpleasant on your servers. It's what's happened. It's what's happening, and we know it is. But be assured that with Kuiper and with WatchGuard, we can help you, we can explain to you, and you'll get somebody far more technical than me, giving you the facts of how actually to deploy this into your environment. So again, just thank you so much. Thank you to Kuiper for inviting us onto the presentation, and thank you for you guys for making this part of this event. Really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, John. Hope you have a lovely week, and thank you so much for your support and all the great information you've given us today. Thank you to everyone that watched. I know it's Monday morning and you're all feeling a bit grey and But it is a bank holiday at the end of this week. So, you know, if you've got any great plans, hope you all enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.